has 4 or 5 houses smashed in it. But what I can do is pick up one of these pictures when I see it.
Each one of these photos holds a memory that may be the only piece that's left for so many families.
If these photos are now in our possession, whoever they belong to probably lost a lot. If it helps people feel some normalcy or some connection to a time and a place before their lives were turned upside down by this disaster, then our goal or our purpose here will have been served.
Indeed, not all hope is lost. And if you'd like to see these photos up close, in case you recognize a face and can help, just head to Asheville PD's Facebook page. Coming up, we just got our first look at evidence in the federal election subversion case against former President Donald Trump. We will share the very latest. Then a new investigation of Tesla. What prompted the government to start looking into its full self-driving system? And millions of dollars going to states to fight the opioid epidemic. The debate around how to allocate that money when we come back. In the federal election subversion case against former President Donald Trump, a judge has unsealed about 2,000 documents from special counsel Jack Smith, rejecting Trump's attempt to keep them sealed until after the election. The National News Desk's Atra al-Nashar reports on what's inside those documents.
We're getting a look at some of the evidence special counsel Jack Smith is relying on to make his case that former President Trump was acting as a private citizen, a political candidate, when he allegedly tried to overturn the results of the 2020 election outside his presidential duties.
The overarching decision here is former President Trump immune from this prosecution or not immune?
A hurdle Smith has to overcome after a Supreme Court decision earlier this year granted presidents broad legal immunity. The majority of the nearly 2,000 documents unsealed Friday are redacted. The rest, for the most part, were already public, but now we know Smith is using them to make his case, like these court documents from a challenge to Arizona's results, listing Trump's campaign as the plaintiff, not the Trump administration.
If Trump wins, this case is going to go away. But if Trump loses the election, this case, in theory, one day will be tried. And so Jack Smith's got to be careful about trying to influence a jury and releasing confidential information.
The prosecution focusing on excerpts from former Vice President Mike Pence's book, So Help Me God, in which he wrote about meetings with campaign lawyers after the election.
Jay Sekulow, his personal lawyer and staunch defender, wasn't optimistic about the election challenges. But the campaign pressed on with them.
Trump's team tried to keep these documents sealed until 9 days after the election, arguing making them public would interfere with the election. Judge Chutkin took the opposite view. If the court withheld information that the public otherwise had a right to access solely because of the potential political consequences of releasing it, that withholding could itself constitute or appear to be election interference. As for what's next in this case,
Former President Trump's legal team is going to file a brief after the election, November 14th, where they're going to say, hey, look, this case should be tossed out on its head.
by then, we'll know who the next president is, and it'll be their Department of Justice that will determine whether Smith keeps his job and continues this case. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar reporting.
Atra, thank you. Tesla is facing a new investigation into its full self-driving system. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration decided to take action after the company said there were 4 crashes in low visibility conditions, one of them fatal. The investigation covers 2.4 million cars. Tesla has said that the system is not autonomous and drivers have to be ready to take control. The last full-size Kmart in mainland United States on Long Island is closing this Sunday. That's according to an employee there. There used to be over 2,000 Kmarts in the United States, but the company has been struggling since 2002 when it filed for bankruptcy. Competition from Walmart, Target, and Amazon contributed to its downfall. There is still one small store in Miami and a few in Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands. South Korea now says North Korea has troops in Russia fighting against Ukraine. Today, South Korea's intelligence agency said Russia's Navy recently moved North Korean special ops forces to a Russian port city, and more North Korean troops are expected there soon. Ukrainian President Zelensky warns that the Russia-Ukraine conflict could turn into a world war with North Korean troops there. The U.S. Defense Department, however, has not confirmed the reports. And we have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we begin with a police chase that turned deadly.
The white Chevy Tahoe.
In the span of 27 seconds, just 0.6 of a mile, the chase was over.
At high rate of speed, he just keeps into a house. We're at Nevada and Cedar.
But the tragedy for one Fresno family had just begun. Deputies say the driver of that SUV, 18-year-old Adam Canales, had been near the site of a large fight involving gang members. And when he sped away, they followed him.
He was driving very recklessly.
As he crossed Cedar Avenue, he lost control, sending his white SUV into the bedroom of this home on Nevada, where sisters 18-year-old Eliza Yang and 25-year-old Meng Yang were asleep.
And he's going to spend some time in jail for his actions in this case.
After the last break-in, Sean shared this security footage with us. 3 people wearing hoods and masks enter through the store's front door, grab almost every single book and cash from the register.
I would be shocked if all of them were found.
Duff says he's trying to remain level-headed, but when police posted these photos of the comic books, some of them looked familiar. Specifically an autographed copy of classic X-Men #1.
These are some other ones that we have on the wall up here.
After 3 break-ins, Duff has moved his passion project to a new location.
At this point, it's been several months since the break-ins, and I had already written off getting any of the comics back, but you never know.
More than 50 cars, all stripped down to mere parts. That's what Bexar County investigators found at this lot today on the county's far south side. Sheriff Javier Salazar says deputies came by the chop shop by chance after a fire on the property.
One of the investigators recently had occasion to, utilizing a neighboring property, look over and see some license plates of some vehicles that were in the back. Those license plates were checked and were found to come back stolen.
Investigators got a search warrant for the property where they found the cars completely taken apart. Many of those coming from higher-end pickup trucks like King Ranch and Platinum Edition Fords.
It looks like they're bringing these vehicles here, dismantling them, and then selling them elsewhere, selling parts of them elsewhere.
Salazar says the damage found today tallies up at around $2 to $2.5 million.
Coming up, the growing debate about the best way to spend millions of opioid settlement dollars. Stay with us. States across the country are getting millions of opioid settlement dollars to fight the crippling epidemic. How that money is spent could mean the difference between life and death for some. Spotlight on America investigator Angie Moreski looks at the debate over how to best spend those desperately needed dollars.
Shylin Scubis is a resident of West Virginia Sober Living Solutions in Morgantown, West Virginia. She transferred here after spending a year in jail on drug-related charges.
I was addicted to drugs. I fell into a dark spot in my life, led me to incarceration.
Providing opioid settlement money to recovery homes is one of the ways experts say those dollars can have immediate impact.
Do you need any Narcan?
Along with harm reduction services like distributing the overdose reversal medication naloxone and making substance use treatment more available.
Right now I'm focused on me and my recovery and, getting on my own 2 feet again.
What are some of the pros and cons of spend now or save for later?
There are no pros for save for later.
Jonathan Stoltman is executive director of the Opioid Policy Institute.
We're still in an active crisis right now, so it makes sense to spend the money as quickly and as effectively as possible on the things that we know work.
Our concern is not so much the past, it's the future.
Jonathan Board is executive director of the West Virginia First Foundation, a private nonprofit created by the state to distribute the bulk of West Virginia's settlement money. He takes a different approach.
We know certain areas of recovery are really important, but we have to start thinking generationally too.
Board agrees money needs to be spent now, but also wants to take a long-term approach to reduce the likelihood of the addiction cycle continuing.
We need to take an eye and move a little bit upstream to prevention as well. That's where we change fundamentally the trajectory of this state.
West Virginia has the worst overdose rate in the country, 3 times the national average, and it's having an overwhelming impact on the children of substance users.
In West Virginia, over 50% of all of their children are being raised by someone other than their parents. As a small state, if we want to exist and thrive, we have to solve problems for our children and grandchildren. It's not just the here and now.
Board wants to see more money go to things like youth prevention services and foster care. But addiction experts say it's hard to fix the future when the crisis now is still so bad, with about 100,000 people nationwide dying every year of overdoses. The crisis isn't going to end tomorrow or even next year. This is going to go on for years.
No, that's absolutely right. That's not to say that prevention isn't important, but we also know prevention is a real long game. Think about it as the building is on fire. The first thing that you got to do is put out the flames.
With more than $1 billion in opioid settlement money expected for West Virginia alone, Board is determined to make investing in the future part of their solution.
We have to think broadly. If we isolate or have tunnel vision, we won't solve this in any meaningful fashion.
For Spotlight on America, I'm Angie Moreski.
Thank you, Angie. And a big question this evening, will the LA Dodgers be in celebration mode this weekend? What they'll have to do to attempt winning their 2nd championship title in 4 years. happening right now, the LA Dodgers hard at work looking to clinch their spot in the World Series. The Dodgers are just one win away from advancing to the finals after a 10-2 blowout victory over the New York Mets in Game 4 last night. Now, the score right now is 8-2 Mets, top of the fourth, so they're going to have to claw their way back to get that win. But if they can make it happen, they do take on the American League champions, which will be either the Yankees or the Cleveland Guardians. The Dodgers have won the World Series 7 times, most recently in 2020. So let's just see how the cards fall tonight. That does it for this edition of the National News Desk. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful weekend.